Welcome YouTubers and scale modelers to another episode of Model Mayhem Mania. In this video we're going to take a look at AMT's Blazing Bison 1/25th scale model kit. All in all, a fantastic looking model when it is complete. The three massive 600 cubic inch Arias Hemis give this pulling tractor a look all of its own, both in real life and also in this model kit. If you would like to view the real life version of this vehicle, just type Blazing Bison into your YouTube search engine and you too can view this very powerful monster in action. If you are new to scale modelling or you are looking for an easy kit to build, I wouldn't suggest that you attempt this model, given that the instructions are vague and fraught with errors. The build is also technically quite difficult, as this model must be built sequentially. You'll see what I mean once you've watched this video. And on that note, on with the video. So just a quick look at the products that I use to complete these models. The rattle cans are generally used for bodies and chassis. The small humbrol tins for detailing of engines, consoles, interiors and the like. The humbrol poly cement for gluing and finer spots for gluing, because of the little needle on the end makes it fantastic for that purpose, and also composite glues such as two-part epoxies, silicons, Tarzan's grip, all sorts of glues. Experiment for yourself, find out what works best for you. That's generally best. The Maguire's plastics I use with light sanding as well for brilliant shines and finishes, as you'll see later in this video on my body paint jobs. The panel line accent colours for detailing, as well as Tamiya pigments, bring out the best in the paints as well, and the Model Master acrylics. The semi-gloss black is one of my favourites because it dries so fast and it's a beautiful semi-gloss finish that you can apply to many different parts of your models. So yeah, feel free to give them all a go. Just experiment is my only advice there. What works for one doesn't work for another, so you know, you've got to make up your own mind what works best for you. Problems. So we're going to have a look at a few of the problems that I encountered with this model build. So in this photo you can see the differential and wheelie bars assembled, and I'll just give you a quick look at the instructions and how they show you to put it together. It is quite tricky, so I'll just point a few things out for you. So in the first part of the instructions where it shows to join the diff together, it doesn't show you in the picture that there's actually a locator for the tow hitch on the back of the diff. So this part needs to be on the bottom, and I'll just move forward. That's the part I was speaking of, so that's going to be facing up, and this part has to be down. It doesn't look like it, it doesn't really give you a good general idea, but these two parts are symmetrical. So just be very careful with that. The end result, if you do happen to glue it the wrong way, is that your tail shaft won't line up with the gearbox, and that's how you'll know that you've glued it around the wrong way. And that's what the tail shaft looks like installed as well. So you can see pretty clearly there that if you've got it right, it'll line up. If you haven't, it won't. So yeah, just be very careful with that. Something else that I wanted to touch on as well is these tow hitch supports as well. You don't have to glue them in individually. You can glue them together before you put them in. It's a lot easier. There's a little locator button just there that you can line that up with, and once they're installed, that's the way they look. You'll know once you see it, but once you get to the stage where you need to glue your diff in, these edges are really tough to see as well. I'll just see if I can find the photo quickly. Yeah, so the chassis goes on the outside of the diff. The wheelie bar edges go on the inside of the diff. You can't really see it in the instructions, but once you glue it all together and get it in, it should be fine. But just something to clarify there, because it is a bit vague and you do struggle a bit. You're sort of left guessing where you should put parts. So just for reference, that's on the inside and the chassis on the outside. I'll show you what it looks like put together as well. And what I did with this model as well was, so that's it there, chassis on the outside, wheelie bars on the inside. Just make sure you remember that before you attempt to build that part. It's very tricky. What I did with this part as well is I didn't glue the gearbox in here. I just put it in so that I could see which way the chassis ran and allowed that part there to dry for 24 hours as well. Once I completed that, I then glued the gearbox in and the diffs and the first gearbox casing as well for the primary, and the bell housing for the diff as well. So as you can see, eventually that's the way that the model lines up, and all of these little locators that are on the chassis as you go are accurate, except for this part here, number 53, drive shaft. The drive shaft, as indicated in the instructions, is not the correct drive shaft. So I invite you to try and use these locators, and if the drive shaft goes in and the first gearbox extension or bell housing extension doesn't fit in these locators, don't put it in. I don't know, I can't remember what number that part actually was, but it's incorrect in the instructions. So as you can see there, that's not part number 53, but all of the things line up. If they start not lining up, you've put a part in wrong. That's a good indicator. So you can see on the instructions here as well, this is actually a really good part of the instructions in that it shows you everything that you need to put in. The gear casings, the bell housings, the transmission, the whole lot. So as long as you stick to this diagram, you shouldn't have too many problems. With this build, I took the extra time to put and embellish the model with the extra detail. I think it looks really good. I've seen quite a few different videos on YouTube on how to do your distributor leads and caps. My way of doing it is just to either drill 8 holes in the top, as this one is, or just drill 2 large holes in the top and fit 4 in per hole. Once they lean over, you can't see the hole anyway, and I think it's a really great effect for these models. That's one of the things I did extra for this model, as well as the plastics as well. And you can see it looks fantastic once it's in, you know, the dizzy caps, the whole lot. I did go out and buy some extra wheels as well. So the Goodyear Polyglass GT tyres, they've got the little decals on them. They're a single moulded tyre as well, so you don't have any lines in the tyres or anything. They're really clean and crisp. They look fantastic installed. As you can see, no lines of any kind, and yeah, they fit beautifully. They only fit on AMT wheels as well. I've tried to put them on other models, they don't work, so I just pinched the front 2 for this model. So yeah, in closing for the troubleshooting segment of this video, just remember that all you've got to do is sort of make sure that all of your gear boxes and whatnot line up in all the holes everywhere, and you should be pretty right with the rest of the model. The body fits onto the chassis beautifully, the engine's dropping beautifully as well. There's just probably one other thing I should point out in the fuel tank, which in the instructions you're instructed to put it on first. I'd put the whole engine in first and then glue the fuel tank in, because it doesn't fit where it says it's supposed to, so you've got to really watch that as well, but I'll just show you that quickly as well. So as you can see here with the instructions, the bell housing goes in against the main console. There was a little bit of bending and carrying on to try and get that to fit so that the top part of it, this gear casing, fit into here so that I could get the bell housing on straight. So just keep playing with it until you get it to sit flush. It does actually go together really well, the console and the body, so that part of the model's no problem. But as you can see here, they indicate to put the fuel tank on before you mount the engine. You should wait. Don't put the fuel tank on until you've mounted the engine, because the back of the engine hangs over the bell housing, and then where you've glued the fuel tank, you'll have to pull it off and re-glue it. So just wait until you've mounted the engine before you put the fuel tank on as well. Just something else you should know. I'll show you quickly the box art. That's where the fuel tank's located as well, and as you can see, it's very close to the edge of the bell housing, but it is just moved backwards slightly. So just keep your eye on that when you're assembling the model. Now, if I was an engineer and I looked at this picture, you'd say that getting the exact amount of distance between these two areas into the hole here would be the perfect way to mount this. It's actually not. This hole needs to be further over to the left, so there is bias there. I don't know how you're going to do it without actually seeing it, but the blower rollers and the blower belt don't fit unless this hole is further over to the left. So that's a really tricky one. There's actually other parts that mount on this. The back of the next bell housing goes here. The blower cover and stuff go on, so it's impossible to sort of know where to glue this before you've put everything else on, which is just plain old poor design, unfortunately. So the only other way around it is to cut the locator button off the back of the top blower roller. That's the way I got around it. If you like, you can sort of try and shift it over a little bit before you have to go through the whole gluing and assembly process. That's the other way around it. I'll leave that one up to you, but it is a tricky part, this one, so just watch out for it. So if you get to this stage of the model and your engines look like this, you've done it well. Other extra embellishments I just thought I'd show you quickly. I did drill out the exhaust pipes, so you do the math. 8 times 3, 24 little tiny holes I had to drill out. So it's a lot of work, but it's worth it in the end. If I'm going to put the extra cash into the fancy tyres and do all the extra work to the polish job, all the rest of it, it's well worth it just to add a bit of extra detail, like the dizzy leads, like the holes in the exhaust. They really do finish the model off beautifully. Anyway, I'll roll the rest of the pictures, give you the overall build photos in sequence. I'm Uncle Smifkins, and I hope you enjoyed this video.